You have awakened spiritually. You felt it in every cell, as if an invisible veil had been torn, and suddenly you could see what others cannot see. But after that storm of revelations comes the unexpected blow. A brutal lack of motivation, an inexplicable tiredness, as if everything that used to move you had died in an instant. And now you ask yourself, why? If supposedly I've reached a higher level of consciousness, do I feel so empty, so dim, so lost? This video is not going to sugarcoat anything. Today I'm going to show you the psychological and emotional root of that phenomenon that no one dares to tell you about. I'm going to teach you why, after spiritual awakening, many people sink into an apathy so deep it seems to have no way out. And above all, you're going to discover how to break this state and recover the strength you feel you've lost. If you ever thought you were ruined inside after awakening, stay, because here you will understand the raw truth and what you must do with it. Do you want to know why your soul seems asleep after opening its eyes? Then listen carefully, because what's coming now may make you uncomfortable, may even scare you, but it will be the key you need to get out of the lethargy you're trapped in. What nobody tells you is that after a spiritual awakening, your brain no longer works the same. The reward system that used to push you toward external goals, toward achievements, toward material or emotional aims, collapses. And it does so because suddenly none of that makes sense. Your conscious mind begins to question every desire, every ambition, every reason you used to run for without looking back. What used to be fuel is now smoke, and of course you feel powerless because the engine you lived on has broken. The terrifying thing is that you don't see it coming. You believe that after clarity will come eternal euphoria, perfect peace, infinite motivation. But what arrives is a void that acts like a test. It's as if the universe took away all your crutches to see if you can walk alone. And here's the uncomfortable truth. It's not that you've lost motivation. It's that you can no longer depend on what used to move you. Your old stimuli have died, and what you're feeling is the grief for that death. Your lack of desire is not laziness. It is not weakness. It is a brutal psychological transition. You are in an intermediate terrain where the mind still doesn't know how to function without the old reward system. And it is in that terrain that many get lost because they think they have ruined everything, when in reality it is the most dangerous and most powerful stage. Because in the silence of the void, a space opens. The space to choose again, to build a motivation that no longer depends on external approval, nor on the ego, nor on the illusion of success. But of course, this is where the true enemy appears. Despair, that inner voice that tells you you will never feel the same again, that you have lost everything. And if you give power to that voice, you become trapped in a psychological limbo few get out of. Because the human mind hates having no direction, and when it doesn't find a clear path, it fabricates ghosts, fabricates fears, fabricates excuses. You begin to feel that nothing makes sense, and if you don't understand what's happening, you mistake the process for an end. Do you know the secret that almost nobody reveals? That the absence of motivation after a spiritual awakening is not a mistake. It is a purge. It is the moment when your psyche gets rid of the old programs that no longer serve. And while it does this, you feel empty, disoriented, broken. But what is actually happening is that the false layers that pushed you before are falling away. The need for recognition, the obsession with standing out, the fear of being forgotten. The question you must ask yourself is not, how do I recover my motivation? But what kind of motivation do I want to build now that I know the truth? Because if you think about it, you don't want to go back to chasing the same rotten carrots. What you are looking for now is a different motivation, one that does not depend on external illusions. And that is the challenge, to discover what internal force can sustain you when everything else no longer works. And here comes the disturbing part. Most people cannot stand it. Most try to go back, to recreate the life they had before, to seek old pleasures, like an addict who needs another dose. But the one who dares to go through the discomfort, the one who stays in the void and observes without fleeing, discovers something that no one can take away. A new kind of drive, an energy that doesn't come from fear or from the need to be somebody. A silent force that is born from the understanding that you no longer need external reasons to move, because movement itself becomes the reason. And when you get there, the lethargy turns into power. The void becomes fertile ground. But until then, you will have to walk through darkness, knowing that the greatest enemy is not outside, but in your own mind, shouting at you to give up. And if you don't learn to silence that voice, you will never see what's on the other side of the desert. Do you want to know how to cross that desert without dying in it? That's the part that comes now. And if you dare to listen, you may discover why your awakening hasn't taken your life away, but rather is giving you the opportunity to truly begin. What few dare to acknowledge is that behind that inner silence you feel like a curse hides the greatest psychological challenge of your life, learning to live without the drug of prefabricated purpose. Society programmed you since childhood to pursue goals you never chose, inherited objectives, other people's dreams. They told you, study, work, get recognition, belong to something, progress. Everything was written in advance. And even if it was burdensome, at least it gave you direction. But now, after awakening, you no longer swallow that charade. And what looks like apathy is actually the withdrawal of a slave who no longer wants chains. The mind hates the void because the void has no script. And when the script disappears, your brain stands naked, desperately searching for a new manual. Here's the sinister thing. Many cannot bear that nakedness and end up inventing a spiritual disguise that replaces the old social disguise. They become eternal seekers, jumping from teacher to teacher, from practice to practice, collecting experiences like someone who collects medals without understanding that they remain prisoners of the same mechanism they believed they had destroyed. And perhaps that is your greatest fear now, realizing that you might be building another prison, prettier, shinier, but a prison nonetheless. Because there's nothing more tempting than taking refuge in a new belief system to escape the vertigo of freedom. And that is where the trap lies. Confusing awakening with a spiritual club where you feel comfortable, when in reality it is the most brutal invitation there is to stand alone facing yourself. If you feel you have no desire for anything, that the world has lost color, that nothing drags you as before, don't take it as a failure. Observe it as a test to see if you can bear existing without scenery. The real psychological work after an awakening is not floating in peace. It is enduring the cruelty of looking at yourself in the mirror without ornaments, without expectations, without stories that paint over your void. And of course it hurts. Of course the body rebels. Of course the heart feels hollow. But that discomfort is the door to something you will never be able to lose. Authenticity. This is where the fascinating part begins. When you stop fleeing the void and contemplate it straight on, you discover that inside it there is no death, but a fertile silence. It's not nothingness. It's the ground where, for the first time, you can plant seeds that are yours. Not inherited, not imposed. The disinterest you now feel for worldly things is the sign that your psyche is tearing out the old roots. And although that leaves you staggering, it also opens the possibility of choosing from scratch. Do you notice? The mystery isn't why you've lost motivation. The mystery is why life has torn that old engine from you. What are you going to do now that you have no excuses? Now that you cannot hide behind hollow goals? Most will fall back asleep, invent a routine, look for a savior to give them a prefabricated meaning. But you are not here for that. If you have made it to this point of the video, it's because deep down you know that this lethargy is not the end, but the prelude to something enormous. The terrifying thing is that something enormous has no name yet. It has no shape, no mold. You will have to forge it yourself in the dark, without manuals, without guarantees. And that is where those who truly are reborn come from radical solitude, from unbearable silence, from renouncing everything that once seemed vital. And when you survive that process, you no longer need motivation, because you discover something stronger, a will that depends on nothing, a force that does not ignite with external rewards, but with the certainty that even if no one applauds you, you are still capable of walking. And now tell me, are you willing to endure that void a little longer until it stops frightening you and begins to reveal who you really are? Because that is the key everyone searches for, and very few find. And here we are, on the edge of the cliff no one talks about. You have understood that your lack of motivation is not a mistake, but the sign that you are leaving behind everything that once controlled you. But the most striking thing comes now. Accept that this state is not a sentence, but a transition. And in that transition, there are no maps, no guides, only the rawness of your own mind facing itself. Do you understand? You are at the exact point where most retreat and look for refuge, but you can cross that line and become someone who no longer needs excuses to move forward. And now that we've made it this far, before we continue, I want to present the following to you. Our book, The Formula of Awakening, is now available. Do you feel like there's something inside you that wants to awaken, but you don't know where to start? Then I invite you to transform your way of thinking, and with it, your way of living. Discover who you can become. Start today. The link to get the ebook is in the first pinned comment of this video. Grab your copy now at a great price. With that said, let's continue with the video. True power arises when you stop waiting for motivation to return like a divine blessing. And you understand that it's not about waiting for anything, but about building from nothing. That is the brutal twist. What you feel today as weakness is, in reality, the only solid ground you have ever had in your life. Because it is the only ground that does not depend on anyone or anything. And if you have reached this far, it's because inside you already know it. You don't seek distractions. You don't seek empty words. You seek the truth. And the truth is this: spiritual awakening doesn't give you wings. It tears away the false ones, so you can discover you could always walk without them. The void that scares you today is the place where tomorrow your most real strength will be born. Now I want you to do something. Write in the comments the phrase, "From the void I am reborn," to seal your commitment to this process. That phrase is not for me, it is for you. So you remember that every time you feel lost, you are actually closer to finding yourself. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring these topics with me, because what's coming in the next videos is not suitable for conformist minds. Here we're going to talk about what others keep quiet, we're going to look straight at what others fear, and if you dare, this channel could be the mirror you need. So before you go, take a deep breath and remember, what you call darkness today is only the training to see in the dimness. And when you learn to see there, nothing in life can blind you anymore. See you in the next video. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll get lost on purpose and show up when you least expect me, like the echo of a truth that was already inside you. Until then, stay awake.